Hi everyone, this is Eric Chopra. Welcome to another episode of Decoding Art. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Dutch renditions of Mughal emperors. Now, in a post that I made last week, I talked about this French engraver, Bernard Picard, who made his renditions of the Dasha avatars, or the 10 avatars of Vishnu. So these renditions that he made, they were first copied in Europe in the 17th century and then copied by Picard in the 18th century. And since many of you were fascinated by that post, I think this Decoding Art episode will dazzle you equally, if not more. So to give you a little background before we begin this exploration, in this essay called Collecting Indian Miniatures by Rembrandt and His Contemporaries in the work Changing Images, Lasting Visions, India and the Netherlands, we are made aware of the fact that there were Dutch commercial contacts with the Mughal Empire in the east, west and the south, and that many paintings from the Mughal Tasveer Khana traveled to the hubs of Dutch aristocracy, especially in Amsterdam. Now this essay asserts that the Dutch East Company, the VOC, had an agreement with the court artists to deliver a series of portraits of Mughal emperors and the sultans from Bijapur and Golconda, for these works were in vogue in these Dutch aristocratic hubs. Now, the Mughal works were most probably acquired by ambassadors of the VOC at the Mughal court. Now, between 1656 and 1661, we see this very popular Dutch artist, Rembrandt Van Rijn, who begins to copy 22 Mughal miniatures through drawings. Now, the originals, the Mughal originals that he consults to draw his pieces, were from 1610 and 1655. Now, the essay claims that he was definitely attracted to the exotic craftsmanship and the delicacy of the Mughal court paintings and copied them out of professional curiosity. Now, to those who are familiar with Mughal art, these Dutch renditions might appear a little skeletal to the eye. The dramatics, the fusion of various colors, the elaborate designs, the fancy borders of the Mughal court are missing out in the works of Rembrandt. But for me, he's still able to capture the essence of Mughal symbolisms and the deeper meaning that they possess. So while this sketch of Shah Jahan standing does not match the puffiness of the garments in this painting from the Mughal rendition on the right, and he does not have his ear adorned with an expensive earring or his fingers, wearing ruby or emerald rings, but he still carries the rather rough halo depicting divine light, the Fari-e-Zadi. His turban follows the same technique that was drawn out by the Mughal artist. So while Rembrandt goes ahead to appropriate pre-existing images and reimagines them, he still ensures that he maintains to some extent the fabric of continuity and familiarity, which is exactly what I find very, very amusing about his work. Now, in the next work, you see Rembrandt's rendition in which he shows Shah Jahan in conversation with his son Dara Shikoh. And on the right, you see a Mughal painting which represents Shah Jahan receiving Dara Shikoh. Now, I'm not showing the works that Rembrandt used to make his renditions, but trying to make some sort of comparisons with Mughal works and that of Rembrandt's. Now, in an article for Quartz India, Maria Thomas quotes Stephanie Schrader, who curated the museum exhibition Rembrandt and the Inspiration of India for the J. Paul Getty Museum. So even Schrader goes on to talk about the magnificence of Rembrandt's works and states that the fine tassel lappets of the Muslim jamas, the stitched coats at the right shoulder, the intricate folds of the turban, the ruched pajamas, loose pants, the transparent muslin skirts, the soft leather folds of the upturned jutis, shoes, and the intricately patterned patkas, the sashes, all rendered by Rembrandt in laborious detail, are unmistakably Mughal. So she too tries to establish this sort of familiarity and continuity in the works that were made at the Mughal Tasveer Khana and the works that Rembrandt made. Now the next work we are examining is this sketch that Rembrandt made of Jahangir. On the left is, of course, a young Jahangir made by Rembrandt, and on the right is a much older Jahangir holding a falcon made by Abid. And why I like these two paintings together is because they sort of, to me, are placed in this same universe. Now, though the painting on the right is of course made around 1600 to 1610 and Rembrandt's work is from 1656, 1658, I still marvel at the way in which the young emperor has been rendered. And if you place these two together, you can clearly see the physical changes that have taken place in the emperor's body. However, at the same time, you see the similarity again. You see the dagger, the jutis, the sashes, and, very interestingly, you can also see how their left hand, their fingers, and their palm rests in a similar position. Next up, you see some close-up portraits of Shah Jahan. The one on the left is him by himself, and the one on the right is him with his son. A very interesting thing to note here is the stark difference between the Mughal works and the works of Rembrandt. And the difference is that the latter plays around with shading and with perspective. He also, through these sketch-like works, to me at least, makes the visual appearance of the emperor more personal. There are these strong human-like qualities that emerge from Rembrandt's renditions which somehow make this visual experience, it makes the visual experience very accessible. And it is not like Rembrandt could not work with other techniques. He was a brilliant and experimental artist. So if you see his other works, he has used this technique which he had mastered. It is called the impasto technique, where thick paint protrudes from the surface of the painting, so it makes something very three-dimensional. So if you see one of his most prominent works, The Night Watch, made in 1642, this work is known for its very big size, the use of light, shadow, and the idea of introducing motion in a military painting which would usually be a formal static portrait. And he plays around a lot with lighting here, exactly telling the observer whom to focus on. Also, very interestingly, this work has been attacked numerous times. So a shoemaker in 1911 slashed it with a knife because he was protesting that he could not find work. Then in 1975, the work was attacked by an unemployed school teacher who slashed it with a bread knife and claimed that he was ordered to do it by the Lord. And in 1990, an escaped patient sprayed acid onto this painting. But the painting is fine now. It is restored with a very refined LED lighting. Okay, there is too much non-Indian history for me to go into the depths of, but this was just to give you an idea of the greatness of Rembrandt's techniques and that he was able to work with so many. Now, this final work on your screen that you see by Rembrandt is called Akbar and his son Salim in Apotheosis. Now, in art, this term connotes a particular genre. It means that it is referring to the advancement of somebody towards a divine status. And in art, it is to portray somebody in a very glorified and exalted way. So in this painting, you can see again the halos radiating behind the to-be king Salim, who would become Jahangir, and Akbar. Again, you see the rays around the sun, which look like roughly drawn lines. But also what I found very interesting about this piece is that Rembrandt has also included cherubs on the top. And I discussed the significance of these European angels in a Mughal sky in my last Decoding Art video for Maskiacho. So you can go and see that video. It is on our Instagram highlights entitled Decoding Art. Or you can check out Maskiacho's page. So on the right of this screen, you can see that I've used some angels from a Mughal painting of Shah Jahan to give you an idea of the way in which cherubs were drawn in Mughal artworks. Now Rembrandt goes ahead to include these European angels in a Dutch rendition of two Mughals from India. Yes, that's a lot of globalization happening in just one sentence. However, what is more fascinating is that Rembrandt had, in the early 1600s, already tried his hands at drawing cherubs, that too vividly colorful depictions of cherubs. For example, just look at this painting of Cupid blowing a soap bubble from 1634. It is so grand in its depiction, the folds on the garments, the shape of the wings, the focus on the image of the Cupid against this dark backdrop. All of this goes on to reveal the skill of the artist, his capability of experimenting with different styles. Now, I'm also very amused by this self-portrait of his, made in 1658, around the same time he was remaking Mughal depictions. This portrait has been called his calmest and grandest. What has been said about this work on the Google Arts and Culture page is that he sits like a monarch. He does not wear a crown but an artist's beret. He's holding a painter's tool as if it were a scepter. To me, this painting too acts as if it is exalting the artist to a grand status, apotheosis. Not a divine status, but a grander status, like that of a king, a monarch. Who knows whether he had in the back of his mind some Mughal traditions and ideas in mind when he drew this portrait of his own self. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed filming, then something tells me that you will for sure have a lot of fun in our virtual event scheduled for the 4th of July 2021, that is next Sunday. The event is going to be on Mughal aesthetics and I'll be hosting it on Google Meet at 6 p.m. IST. I'll be talking about the aesthetics of desire, myths and demons in art, interacting with art, tangible and intangible forms of art, the politics of fashion, and a lot more. So if you're interested, go fill the Google form link in our bio. Thanks for watching this episode of Decoding Art. I'll see you in the next one.